Welcome back to the Call in Our Shot podcast. It is episode 43. I'm Austin, joined by Logan. Today, we're talking all about the MLB. We're currently in the All-Star break. This is Tuesday, and, we're going to get into it. Normally, the podcast is live on Wednesdays, but, we're in the midst of, no picks for no daily videos for you guys. So we're going to at least put this out there, and we're going to give you some bold predictions. Each of us have three that are for the rest of the MLB season, post-All-Star break, with some crazy value, some plus 4,500s, plus 3,000s, a lot of different picks. But first and foremost, Logan, how are you doing today?
I'm doing amazing. This is our second baseball video in the same day. So, just complete MLB, immersion. This is what we need, though. And, the All-Star break comes at a really good time in the MLB because weird things are going to happen post All-Star break. And if you've bet a whole season of MLB like I did last year, you'll know. And you'll figure it out real quickly. But a lot of things will change. A lot of teams will emerge that maybe were sleeping in the first half. So I'm really excited to see what happens.
The same thing happened last year with the Braves coming out of nowhere. I don't remember what their odds were at the All-Star break, but they obviously were great odds, and whoever bet on them got very good returns. They went and won the World Series. So speaking of World Series, Logan, I'm going to hop right into it. We're recording this a little bit earlier before, Tuesday technically comes around, but I'm going to give you a bold prediction for who I think has a chance to win the World Series. They're not my favorite. They aren't the sportsbook's favorite. I'm going to Boston Red Sox at plus 3,000 odds. I know this comes as a hot take. I've worn my Yankees memorabilia, and, I'm a Yankees fan. But when I look at this Red Sox team, I give them a slim chance, and there's a couple different reasons why. Now, we think about the Red Sox this season. That at the moment, the AL East is a ton of – I think they have all the wild card positions right now. This AL East has been super tough. So it's going to be tough sledding for this team. But I think tough sledding in the regular season helps you for the postseason. I do think this is a playoff team when push comes to shove. This team has a lot of offense. And what's really been – we think about J.D. Martinez, Rafael Devers. They got all the offense out there, Bogarts, and you name it. They got a very good batting average, score a lot of runs. It's really struggled through the first half of the year. It's been their pitching. And I think the pitching is going to come around the second half of the year. They obviously still have some decent pitchers with Eovaldi. They got Pivetta. They got Waka. And they have Chris Sale, who came back, pitched well against the Rays. And so I think this pitching rotation is finally about to turn into, I'm not guaranteeing this team will be an elite unit, but all it takes is the right pitching unit to get hot at the right time. I do think these guys all have capabilities to be quality starters and quality guys that can go 7 innings pitched. The only thing that concerns me is about the Red Sox bullpen, not the best. But you never really know, and I think the Red Sox have enough run opportunities, enough pitching, assuming the pitching can come around. This is a team that has started 4 rookie pitchers out of span in the first half of the year, just a couple weeks back. So that pitching can stay healthy, which is arguably what you need to win a World Series. I like the Red Sox, plus 3,000 odds, worth a little sprinkle. What do you think about that?
I was going to come on here and actually initially debate you, but I think you put up such a good case for it because like you've talked about with the Atlanta Braves, the Braves got hot at the right time, and I'd argue that on paper their pitching wasn't all that great. Like it played really well in the playoffs. They had some big performances, by the Max Frieds and the Charlie Mortons of the world. But could this Red Sox, starting pitching rotation finally get healthy and provide them the spark they need? Absolutely. Like Pivetta and Eovaldi is good enough for it. And what we saw in the last series they played versus the Yankees, they just flat out outscored them, in a couple of those games, which I think was a lot of motivation and what they need going into the second half of the year. I don't hate the pick. The bullpen always will worry me about the Red Sox because they have some turkey tossers in that bullpen for sure. They've got some noodle arms in there that could sell them the game. But you know what? If the offense, as you mentioned, can come around enough, it's pretty much, I think, statistically like a top 5 offense this part of the year. I think if they can carry a second half charge, they could be a really dangerous playoff team. And you're right. Facing teams like the Rays, the Yankees, the Blue Jays, week in, week out, it has only made them better, right? They're seeing some of the top, top pitchers in the league, the Garrett Coles and the McClanahans of the world. So, yeah, dude, I love this pick. At plus 3,000, is it worth a sprinkle? Ask yourself, yes, absolutely.
Yeah, it's not like I'm guaranteeing they're going to win the World Series, although I will be clipping this if they do somehow win it. But, we think about them, they're obviously coming off that momentum, against that Yankees series. They're doing pretty well. They obviously have Fenway Park, very hitter-friendly ballpark. So that should play into their kind of benefits. I just think they're going to be a really talented team. I think they're still going to make the playoffs. And you really never know once October comes around what team can get hot at the right time. I think plus 3,000 odds for a team with this much talent is very good. But, Logan, I think you have some team that you have your eye on.
Oh, yeah. All right, so you can call this an absolute homer pick, but I really just like it for the value. How about the Philadelphia Phillies, right? Plus 4,500 and at that insane value to win the World Series. Now, look, before you grab your keyboard and you say, Logan, absolutely not. they check a lot of boxes to me, right? First box they check, starting pitching, right? They have for sure some of the best arms in the NL. Yeah, grab the keyboard, Austin. They have some of the best, starting pitchers in the NL, right? The Wheelers, the Nolas of the world. Kyle Gibson is a little bit of a wild card. He's had some good outings and some bad outings, but if he can just, even keel pitcher, he's a playoff performer, and he's been in the league long enough, right? They're not tossing a rookie arm out there. So that they check to me the starting pitching box. They checked the offense box, because when bats like Segura and Harper went down, I was like, oh, where is the offense going to come from? Well, they have a few people in their lineup still that are scorching the baseball, right? The Rhys Hoskins of the world, Stott has been a huge surprise for that team. And they really need somebody like Nick Castellanos. Eventually, Nick Castellanos has to find his bat, because his first half of the season has just been terrible, right? He's not been able to really see the ball. It looks like he's got the yips at the plate, right? He just his swing is in some sort of funk. If Nick Castellanos can be the free agent that they expect him to be, this Phillies offense could certainly be dangerous. Obviously Segura and Harper coming back. I don't know their time frame for injury. But it's been really encouraging what I've seen this first half of the season. And then we can talk about bullpen too, because I wouldn't touch a Phillies full game, in the first few weeks of the season, because I was like, oh man, that bullpen's like a top 5 worst bullpen. Now they're like middle of the pack, right? They've improved a lot. They've held down games. Right off the bat, I remember the Cardinals series where they won a game 1-0 with their bullpen absolutely carrying the second half of that game. And I was just really shocked. I was like, this is a new Phillies team. So if you're giving me 40 plus 4,500 odds on this, they could easily get hot, a la Braves, in the same division and make a run definitely at the NL and even World Series.
Yeah, I mean, I will never just disagree with someone that's betting 4,500. My only questions and concerns with the Phillies lineup is very eerily similar to a team like the New York Yankees, a team that very heavily relies on the home run ball to put up runs. And, Schwarber, home run or bust, basically. And so I think they have the pitching staff by all estimations, with Wheeler and Nola and all those guys going out there. And those guys are elite pitchers. I mean, they're going to be there's a reason their ERAs are so low. They're very good, but I'm just concerned that they won't be able to put on base runners to score enough runs. And we know that pitching wins the World Series. But you're right, that bullpen has really turned around. It was a weak spot for this team. Quietly, it's become sort of a strength to kind of go to those guys and kind of hope for them. They carry you to the end of the game. They are a team that's sitting, one game out of the playoffs as we record this, so they're right on the fringe of the wild card spot. I don't see them, unless they get super hot, coming up and catching, the Mets or the Braves, or like probably 6 or 7 games above them. But I still think this Phillies team does have power. They got Bryce Harper. That need to get him healthy. He's obviously the key to this team. This team goes as far as Bryce Harper carries them. I think they're more of a 500 ball club without Bryce Harper, but something about having a guy like Bryce Harper in your lineup batting 3 or 4, you can count on him to hit home runs, clutch moments when he's going to show up. So I don't hate the Phillies pick at all. I think they got a good chance. This 40 plus 4,500, not giving us a plus 400 pick, but I do think they got a chance. But speaking of making the playoffs, I'm going to give you a team that's not going to make the playoffs. The Minnesota Twins to miss the playoffs. Now, there's no odds for this at the moment. I'm sure there might be if you go. Probably the odds for these sort of things will kind of come live as the All-Star break's kind of happening, because they don't have to fluctuate with games happening at the same time like we are when we're recording this. But we think about right now, as we sit here, Twins currently sitting at 49-41. We are a couple days early. They are ahead in the division by a couple games, 4.5 games to be exact right now over the Guardians. But I'm just not a big believer in this Twins team. Now, you think about their lineup, they got a lot of guys. I just don't trust in the Byron Buxtons of the world. I like Luis Arraez. I like Carlos Correa. I just don't trust the rest of this lineup that's led by, Urshela. You got Gary Sanchez, Keplers, Polanco's. You got all those guys that just feel like if they don't hit a home run, they're not getting on base. They're not doing anything. And I just don't trust this pitching staff all too much. Like, you got Joe Ryan, sure. You got Chris Archer that throws max 4 or 5 innings. Dylan Bundy, Smeltzer. I just don't trust it. And then, you got Sonny Gray, of course. Sonny Gray just is a good numbers on paper. Can't trust him if you ever bet on him. And so I look at this team. Sure, they're winning their division right now, but I much rather trust a team like, I think the Guardians have a good chance to come and overtake them. The White Sox. I think both those two teams are just as talented, if not more talented bats. And their bullpens, or not their bullpen, their arms are going to come around. I mean, they have a certified ace in like Shane Bieber. Dylan Cease, very good for the White Sox too. Those guys have aces on the mound. I don't trust this Twins team whatsoever. I've seen this team score 10 runs one day, score 0 for 3 straight games. This is a team that's offense is all over the place, and I think if they go cold, They could go cold and go on a big losing streak. Well, I think the Guardians or White Sox could get pretty hot. I think the White Sox are an interesting team to bet to make the playoffs. I think that teams do a big regression or positive regression the second half of the year. How do you feel about these Twins, though?
Yeah, I love your take on this, Austin. It's like you read my mind on some of this. It's like we're sharing pre-show notes or something, because you know my beliefs on the Twins. I think they're a fraud. I think they're a sham. I think their starting pitching looks decent on paper, but it will all fall apart in the playoffs. Sonny Gray, as you kind of touched on, was the biggest mirage of a pitcher to bet on last year for the Reds. Red Sonny Gray sold me so much. Twin Sonny Gray sells just as much. I'm going to be honest with you. So I mean, at the end of the day, like who's their rely upon ace? I think Joe Ryan's a little bit of an erratic, starting pitcher. I wouldn't necessarily trust him. Smeltzer, are you serious? Like Dylan Bundy, the of the Angels, like, come on, man. Like what? So starting pitcher, yes, there's to me a pretty big gap and an unknown. You're telling me that they're going to have to carry what they did the first half of the season to the next half of the season. I don't think it's sustainable, and I don't think it's sustainable offensively. As you mentioned, there's a lot of home run hitters in them, and they rely so heavily on the home run. I wish I had a stat in front of me to pull on that, but they do rely heavily on the home run, right? Arias is always on base. He's always on base. He lives there, right? He's a singles machine. But at the end of the day, the Keplers, the Polancos, the Larnacks of the world, I don't know. They just have to get more consistent, offense for me. And their bullpen, they got a few bullpen arms in there that throw really fast and throw really hard, but can't find the strike zone. I know it because I've watched some later half of Twins games, and I'm like, ooh. So that's going to sell them. I think their bullpen ERA, I don't know this for a fact, but I'm pretty sure it's been getting worse over the past few weeks going into the All-Star break.
I don't know it to be exact. I'm trying to look up some stats on my phone right now. But yeah, this is a team we've seen them and the Guardians, two teams that we constantly see them coming back and trying to win games at the end of games, winning extra innings, winning, on walk-off home runs and stuff like that. Yeah. That's not sustainable. That's why, I don't think betting on the Yankees today, which are like plus 400 to win the World Series, no value on that. You don't want to tie up your funds in a plus 400 pick. And while I don't know the odds for the Minnesota Twins to miss the playoffs, but I just think this is a team that relies too heavily on a home run, doesn't have good enough pitching, and not a great bullpen. And, teams go on runs. We've seen teams like the Mariners win 10 games, 9 games in a row. Teams like the Orioles win 10 games in a row. These are things that happen every now and then. And a team like the Twins could go on a cold losing streak. Wouldn't surprise me at all. But Logan, you got a team not to miss the playoffs, maybe to win their division. Who you got?
Yeah, I've got the St. Louis Cardinals, and if you've been a follower of this program, I'm a big Redbirds fan. I love the St. Louis Cardinals. They're one of my favorite teams to watch and even bet on. But I think they have a really good chance to win the NL Central. Currently plus 175 as we're recording this. It will of course fluctuate because them and the Brewers, there's only 2 games of separation between them, and I really think this is their division to lose. Look. If you want me to get on my anti-Brewers pedestal, I can, but I'll give you the short version, right? I think the Brewers offense is a complete sham, kind of what you said about the Twins. I think they're super home run dependent and can't necessarily sustain that for a whole second half of the year. So I think this is the Cardinals, to division to lose because I love, hitters like Goldie. Goldie was my NL MVP pick actually, a few weeks ago. I want to toot my own horn on that one. Goldie, Arenado. Great hitters. They have a few hitters at the time we're recording this that are probably coming back from injury in the second half of the year that I'm really looking forward to. So this Cardinals team, they check the boxes as far as starting pitching as well. I love Michaelis. Wainwright can give you some solid outings. Had Dakota Hudson, little bit shaky, but the Cardinals bullpen usually is able to hold down the fort. So I like what they can do offensively. I like what they can do starting pitching, and they just play super well at Busch Stadium. So I love the Cardinals second half. I think they can easily run up, wins on the Reds and the Pirates in the second half of the year. They could take this from the Brewers. The Brewers don't scare me all that much.
Yeah, I feel like Brewers fans out there, we promise we don't hate your team too much, but we're just I'm on the same page with you. I'm not a big fan of this Brewers team. I'm looking at their batting averages, and this is a team that has no guys batting above 260 on the team. They got a couple guys in the 250s, but no one's hitting the ball great. And yeah, they're a very home run dependent team. This is a team that normally struggles on the road because they aren't in their home ballpark that's tiny and you can hit a home run easily to right field. I'm just not a big fan of it. I like the plus 175. I'd argue, maybe we'll see. I still got a couple games before the All-Star break, see if this line fluctuates a little bit. But if you could ever get the Cardinals that close to plus 200, look, sign me up. I'm a big fan of the Cardinals team. I think their pitching will get better. They got a lot of young guys. Liberatore is pretty young, Dakota Hudson, whatnot. I think those guys can hold it down. I like the Cardinals pick. I do think they got a good chance. But, even if they make the NL Central, they got no chance of going against this team. And this will be my MVP pick. A guy by the name of Pete Alonso for MVP plus 700. When I was looking at MVP odds, I wanted to give you guys some sort of value on this one. I believe Manny Machado's above him. I don't remember who exactly else is above him. They kind of fluctuate these odds. I mean, they got Goldsmith. I forgot. We got to give you a victory lap. You called Paul Goldschmidt, I don't know, probably a month and a half ago, 2 months ago, at 2,400. He's plus 105 right now. But I think Pete Alonso, when push comes to shove, Mets are going to have a very good record getting Scherzer, DeGrom back, knock on wood, hopefully. I mean, they got Scherzer back, but DeGrom should be coming back probably post All-Star break. And getting those guys back, I think this team's going to go on a run, kind of get hot. I mean, we think about this Mets team through the first 2 months of the year, through the first 50 games. This team was, I don't remember the record, but they were very good. But this was a team that was due some regression. They're kind of getting that regression. This was a team that was hitting, I don't remember their average with runners in scoring position. Ridiculous numbers. That's just not suiting. It's just not possible to keep how good they were doing. So they've seen that regression. Their runs kind of dip a little bit, and that's not a surprise. But what's still been very good, Pete Alonso, leading the league in RBIs at the moment. Very solid. He's kind of this anchor to this Mets offense. And I think when push comes to shove, this Mets team will probably beat the Braves in terms of record. The Braves are hot at the moment, but I think the Mets are a more complete team with better pitching all around, 1 through 5. I think their pitchers are better. And so I think this Mets team might at the end of the day, have one of the top 2 records in maybe the Dodgers have a better record than them, but in the NL, they probably have one of the best records. I think Pete Alonso getting a plus 700. He's going to hit, I don't know, if he can stay healthy, 40 something home runs, probably have over 120 RBIs. It's not outside the realm of possibility. His average is going to be in the 280s. I think he has a chance. And look, he's Polar Bear Pete. The people love him. I think he's got a good chance. I think Goldschmidt, I think the plus 105 is obviously terrible value. I don't see him being that fair of a runaway for this reward. And Manny Machado, I don't trust a single Padre. I refuse to trust the Padre. That team stinks. So I really like this value on Pete Alonso. Plus 700 to win NL MVP. Look, call me crazy. I think he's got his chance, though.
I love the pick. You were spitting, straight gospel on this MLB episode. I love it. And honestly, what you said about, something being sustainable. Yeah, the Mets offense probably won't be that sustainable in the second half of the year. But what also isn't sustainable? Paul Goldschmidt hitting 400 at home, right? Come on. That's Goldie is due some regression. And if there's anybody that could probably take it from him, it's somebody like Pete Alonso, who's going to have a lot of home run and RBI opportunities, because this Mets order is really hard to pitch around. Honestly, if I'm a pitcher facing the Cardinals, I'll pitch around Paul Goldschmidt. It's what I'll do, right? I'll maybe take my chances with Arenado or Tommy Edman or etc. But I might pitch around Paul Goldschmidt. You can't really pitch around Pete Alonso because you have so many talented hitters both in front and behind him. So it's a hard position to be in. I love it at plus 700. I would never lay Goldschmidt at plus 100-ish. No, wouldn't do that. I mean, the ship has sailed on that for these AL MVP, NL MVP votes. But I do love it for plus 700. And for anybody that doesn't know, quick personal story. Austin already knows this story. I went to the University of Florida, where Pete Alonso, Polar Bear Pete, went to college. I had a class with him. He sat a couple desks over from me. It's really, really cool guy. I love Pete Alonso. He wouldn't know me, so don't ask him. But I love Pete Alonso, and plus 700. I think this could be a really great value winner.
Yeah, I think, you're right. You made a good point about, you can't pitch around him because you got the McNeils right behind and batting over 300. A guy that's always clutch, getting guys in. So I think Pete Alonso's got as good of a chance as anyone. I don't think this should be, Paul Goldschmidt's race to lose. I would argue Paul Goldschmidt should probably be closer to plus 300, but they got to give someone a favorite at the moment. And I don't really see any of the Dodgers really, infiltrating this race, because it's hard to put Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman, and Trey Turner. It's hard to kind of just, displace these guys. It's hard to, pick one because they kind of all feed off of each other. So, and you can see that by the odds at both are, Mookie's at plus 1,200, Freeman and Turner at plus 2,000. So unless one of them goes down and one goes on a scorcher, then I just don't see it happening. So I like Pete Alonso. But Logan, what's your third and final bold prediction for this podcast?
Yeah, so how about we go to the Cy Young race, right? Because I don't find a lot of value or crazy predictions I can make in the NL and AL and NL MVP races, but let's go to the Cy Young. And how about Java Joe Musgrove to win NL Cy Young, plus 1,100 odds, right? Okay, so obviously you're looking at this, you're looking at the odds right now, and you're looking, who's the odds-on favorite? Sandy Alcantara, right? And he's pitched so well for the Marlins. I'd argue way too well, right? And he's minus 110, which just kind of makes you say, right? Like that seems like free money. Like I don't know what he can possibly do in the second half of the season to do any better than the first half of the season, right? And Alcantara is going to face some really hard competition, right? He's in a pretty tough division offensively, right? Facing the Braves, you're facing the Mets, you're facing the Phillies, great offensive teams. I think Alcantara might be able to slip up. So that's where I'm saying, does he leave the door open for somebody else in this NL and AL, well, this NL Cy Young race, right? So I'm going to Java Joe, right? Let's talk about his numbers first. 8-2 with an ERA of 2.42, 102 strikeouts in 16 starts this year. I mean, come on. These are NL Cy Young type numbers if Alcantara slips up a little bit. And look, he faces to me a sort of favorable division, right? Dodgers, great offense, but they do strike out a lot. Like Joe Musgrove can easily have a 1 or 2 earned run type game against the Dodgers, week in, week out. You got the Giants. Oh my gosh, don't even get me started about their putrid offense. You got the Diamondbacks. So I'm just talking about within the division, the teams he's going to see more often than not in the NL. And look, I love Joe Musgrove. It would not shock me at all if he makes a little bit of a run. The books always like the Padres, right? The books always think the Padres are a better team. And I'm not here to argue about the Padres, but I think Joe Musgrove is easily a 6-7 innings pitch type pitcher. That's what they expect from him in the Padres. And I can see a little bit of regression happening to Sandy Alcantara. I love him. And he's great. He's been a great pitcher and a great story this year. And the only person he has to really jump is Corbin Burnes, right? I mean, maybe you can talk a little bit about which one you would like more to maybe supplant Alcantara.
Yeah, I mean, when we're talking about, betting the future, there's no value in betting Alcantara at minus 115. That's comical. That's like betting Judge to lead the league in home runs at like minus 120 or you don't bet those sort of things. But I want to touch on Musgrove first, and I'll talk about Burnes. Now, with Musgrove, I think you're betting him. If you're going to bet him, now's the time. He's coming off a bad start against Colorado. And he's coming off, honestly, I'm looking at his starts, 4 bad starts. I mean, prior to, June 16th, after he started against the Cubs, a 1.6 ERA, now sitting at 2.42, hasn't recorded win in any of those 4 starts. So I think the All-Star break couldn't be coming at a better time for a guy like Joe Musgrove that we know is one of the better pitchers in the league. He's been costing a lot of people some money that have been betting on his, K-props or whatever it may be. He just hasn't been his normal self. So the month of end of June, July wasn't great to him, but we know this is a really good pitcher. He should have the run support behind him. This is the Padres offense that is hit or miss, but he's going to go up. And you got to think about, sometimes you look at a lot of narratives, and that's what some of these awards are. They're narrative driven. And this is a guy that's going to be pitching in some big time games against teams, like you said, the Dodgers. The Giants are still, a big game as the season gets closer to the end. He's going to be relied on even more heavier. So I think Musgrove, good chance, plus 1,100. When I think about Corbin Burnes, I think about a guy, obviously, that strikes out a ton of people. But it's hard to bet, all it takes, and we don't like to talk about this side of the game, all it takes is an injury or two. And, Alcantara could go plummeting down the leaderboard. It could happen to Corbin Burnes. Like, you can't predict injuries and they suck, but it's a part of the game. And I'm not predicting Corbin Burnes gets injured the second half of the year, but he is a team that notoriously doesn't get a lot of run support on the Brewers. And we've seen that, happen with DeGrom. But Burnes, I just don't trust him a whole lot. Like, we don't ever take his no on first innings because, there's no value in him. But it just seems, this is a guy that, he's been, the same kind of pitcher for the past, 1 or 2, 3 years or whatever. So I don't see a lot of value in plus 700. I think Corbin Burnes is good. Obviously the best starter that the Brewers have to trot out there. But at the end of the day, I just don't see them wanting to give it to the Brewers. I think you'd rather give it to a team like the Padres that will likely probably have a better record than the Brewers when it's all said and done. And probably the team that's, a team that's probably surprised some people this year on the Padres. Whereas I don't think people are really surprised by what the Brewers are doing so far.
Yeah, I just think there's more win and number padding opportunities for Joe Musgrove than there will be for Corbin Burnes, because like it or not, the Brewers really, really rely heavily on Corbin Burnes. Like when they trot him out, they're like, this is an absolute must win. The Padres, like Joe Musgrove, and he's obviously their ace pitcher, but they do have some supporting arms behind him, and they don't need to ride him into the ground. That's why I'm saying I think Joe Musgrove is a more sustainable over the second half of the season. And I'm talking about, like, Corbin Burnes will face a lot of tough competition even within the division. He's going to face the Cardinals. The Reds are an annoying team to play, and maybe runs it up a little bit against the Pirates. But I'm just thinking, I'm thinking from a divisional perspective. I mean, give me the Diamondbacks and the Giants bats all day long to pad my numbers. And as far as that, I'd like to look at their full schedule, but I just know that Java Joe is in a good position for the Cy Young.
Yeah, he certainly has as good a chance of anyone at plus 1100 odds. You can't disagree with it. And you're right. I think when you push comes to shove and you look at the teams that each of these guys are going to go up against, I mean, you mentioned the Cubs, Reds, Pirates. I mean, locking down those lineups isn't as impressive as, even though the Giants are a weird lineup, they still at least, have some firepower. They still have that. They're still got some lingering effects of last year when they were, the Cinderella story. Everyone wanted to root for the Giants last year. They still are that this year. Rockies, an annoying team. And still got the Diamondbacks, which, what do you say about the Diamondbacks? There's not much to say about them. But obviously, the Dodgers being in your division, it's going to need some quality starts against the Dodgers. Games like on Sunday Night Baseball, he's going to need to show up on those nights. And hopefully, he has some of those. I have no idea their schedule, so I don't want to say I look for, August 15th when he's on Sunday. I can't predict that. But I do think Musgrove's got a decent chance. Plus 1100, I'd be willing to sprinkle on some of that. Like I said, not going to really take Alcantara. If you want to go on Corbin Burns, ride the Burns train, I support it. Plus 700, not terrible odds for a guy that is one of the better pitchers and is going to have to basically carry that Brewers franchise in all of those games.
Yeah, of course. I mean, this is a time to hunt for value, not the time to lay any sort of favorite, because the books have to set a favorite and they have to set what they think is going to be a clear favorite. But baseball's weird. Baseball's fluky. We all know this. Somebody that performed great in this first half of the season, wheels could really fall off. Sandy Alcantara. Just saying.
100%. And you never know with baseball. Anything can happen. You absolutely never know. So that's going to wrap up this episode of the podcast, a shorter one. Hopefully you guys enjoyed, got you a little bit of your call on our shot fix while we're, technically kind of just off and not doing daily videos. Daily videos return Thursday morning. Set your alarm so we'll be bright and early. You'll see us in the normal spot, normal places. We appreciate you guys always for tuning in. If you haven't subscribed, hit that subscribe button. If you want to go download the podcast and support the channel even more, just go search Call on Our Shot. You'll find the podcast logo and all that. You can download it as well as download our daily videos. But we appreciate you guys. It's been Austin and Logan. We'll catch you guys again next week for our daily podcast, our weekly podcast, and we'll see you guys then.